Subtle skills, big results.
Welcome to the Ninja Selling Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Ninja Selling Podcast. It's Rob Nelson and Peter Parnegg with you again today. And I hope that everyone out there has somebody in their life that fills the space that Peter does for me. Now, Peter fills many spaces, but one of them is the person you can call and bounce a really weird idea off of. And so, Peter, it was not long ago that I called you up and I just said, does it seem to you like everyone is saying the same thing right now? That time is really flying by. And we are marking the middle of 2026 right now. I cannot believe that we're here, but we are. And so, Peter, does it seem to you like everybody's saying the same thing, that time is really flying by?
It's funny that you would use the word weird ideas. I don't know what a weird idea is. I think a less than daily mainstream idea, because I'm really trying to even take the word weird out of my vocabulary, because it's a weak word. When I grew up, I remember watching this idea. My parents would always say, man, time is flying. And I didn't feel that as a kid. I don't remember feeling that. And yes, it feels like time is accelerating. And more importantly, people who now are my age are saying the same thing. And I don't remember saying that. So the question is, what is the change in the consciousness that people are having a sense that time is going by? Because I would argue nothing's changed in terms of the pace of time, but our perception of the pace of time is changing dramatically. Why?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if this is a function of the pandemic. I think it's so easy to point toward that moment in 2020 when the world paused for about 6 weeks. And
I don't know what university. It paused for more than 6 weeks.
Okay.
It was 10 months.
3 months? Well, it did.
No, because remember, I remember I was teaching in Ohio and we started on like March 8th. And then March 11th, when we had the commencement, nobody wanted to shake hands, because in 4 days we went from to like, oh no. And I got to the airport and the plane was half empty. And then I remember talking to Don Tennyson going, we're probably not going to teach. This is going to take a month or two till this was over. Remember that. So it was longer than, and maybe that's part of the distortion.
Maybe it is. The distortion is the exact right phrase. But I recall specifically the world shut down. Like I remember walking to Sprouts because they had reopened and I could go get some food from there. Mm-hmm. It was virtually no work. It was the beginning of the work from home cycle, and but there was not much going on there. And it was just kind of this 6 week, at least I recall it, pause, true full on pause. And I'll tell you, the thing that I did is I watched the entire Sopranos series. I'm not even a TV person, but I watched the Sopranos. Yeah. And then it seemed like things swung back the other direction quickly. Mm-hmm. I remember closings taking place in July of that year. Mm-hmm.
In person.
I mean, and they were different, but the market sort of took off out of the pandemic and maintained acceleration for another year or so.
And a half.
Things were bananas. Yeah. And what happened is, because of the pace of our world of real estate, where buyers were being forced to make decisions in a matter of minutes that ordinarily they had weeks or even months.
Overnight.
I mean, it just happened so quickly. And even sellers were in positions where it's like, hey, we've got offers on your property. We're going to need to review and get back to these things and accept which one is going to work for this deal. It happened so quickly, and we accelerated the pace at which we were doing things. That is, to use your term, it's where time got distorted for me. Mm-hmm. So is that real? Has it reset the pace of things? And as we came out of that, we just remember those moments in time and that became our operating norm? Or something else going on?
When you brought this topic up, I started to think about consumption of time. And for 25 years, I know I've taught and thought about this. Time is the only commodity that we all have the same amount of. And where I started this a long time ago was, if we have 168 hours in a week, and let's say, generously, we're in bed 8 of those, 9 times 7, 56 hours, minus 168. We still got 110 hours left. And then let's say we have 24 hours worth of eating, and then we're still at 80 hours. And I remember talking to realtors, where are your 80 hours going? Because everybody said, I'm so busy. And I'm going, well, let's parse through that. So believing that this is a static commodity that we all have the same amount of, I've been looking at where time gets eaten, and now there's the new term death scrolling. And in the last 2 or 3 years, 4 years since the pandemic or maybe starting, the amount of time that is probably consumed with entertainment, I think that is the part of the dysphoria, part of the distortion, that at the end of the week, you spent 7 hours, 14 hours there. So perhaps it's our lack of discernment about where we're spending that resource that is contributing to the dysphoria or to the distortion. So it seems like where's time going? And it's because it's budget creep. It's like we're spending more of that asset. That's a possibility.
So apply it to ninja terms. There is a piece of the ninja selling system that is time management. We call it pie time. And really, the goal
time
of
blocking.
Yeah, the goal of ninja selling is to help you increase your income per hour so that you can have a life. The have a life piece is very time related. It's also very money related. It's also very mindset related. But we use all of the available resources to say to have a life outside of this highly satisfying and productive work life that you have. If we look at things like time blocking and pie time, how do they fit into giving us a sense of control around time, even if it feels like it's accelerating and maybe our distortion that we've talked about continues to exist, but at least we feel in control?
Let's rewind. Somewhere in the 70s or the 80s, the concept of quality time and quantity time got introduced. So maybe this conversation is a little bit longer than we think. And I remember this whole idea of that was the first introduction of work-life balance, because in the 50s and the 60s, it was almost revered that you were a workaholic.
Go to work.
Go to work. Yeah, I work from 7 till 7, come home, has food on the table for me, all that stuff. And all of a sudden it was like, wait a second, maybe this is not the optimal thing, because I actually enjoy watching my kids' soccer game. And instead of saying, sorry, you take the kids, I've got to work, that's when that conversation opened up. And then I remember somebody saying, wait a second, where your kids or your marriage are concerned, you can't dictate quality time. There has to be quantity time, because if you relegate, son, I'm going to be totally focused on you between 6:45 and 7:15, and I expect you to be emotionally available, share your feelings with me, and you've got 30 minutes to do it, ain't the way it works. And all of a sudden we went, maybe there is no such thing as quality time unless there's quantity time. And then can we have work-life balance conversation? Can we turn it off? And then Larry rightfully said, in the real estate business, there is no other business that I'm aware of where your personal life and your business life are as integrally related, because we're trying to have our friends do business with us. So we have to harmonize those. And so the idea maybe is that until we get better at defining really specifically what having a life is.
Yeah.
Before you called me up the other day, I wrote down everything in my life. It was part of my morning routine where I want to intentionally devote the resources of money, time, and attention.
Okay.
Family, my wife, my 4 kids, music, exercise, golf, ninja, teaching, reading, morning routine. And there were 11 of them. And I went, man, in order to structure of my non-sleeping eating time, 100 hours, strangely, that's going to take some attention. But then I thought, 100 hours, I should be able to get that done easily. And all of a sudden what became revealed was how much transition wasting happens. I call it in financial terms leakage. How much money does each household leak each month? You go, I don't know how much I spent on Starbucks.
Right.
I don't know. I hit one-stop shopping on Amazon, and all of a sudden there's a $280 Amazon bill that's like, what did I get for that? So maybe the conversation is valuable to say, we're not doing a good job at inventorying or budgeting, paying attention where we're spending our resources. What's that as a possibility?
I think it's a distinct possibility, and it's rooted in the idea that your pre-pandemic watch still tells accurate time. Nothing changed there. And I don't think the pandemic is this. I love the idea that you brought it back a little bit further to this societal realization. And I think one reflection, it's very powerful to think you can't time block relationships, or you can't time block the home part of it, because it doesn't work that way. But you can time block other things to give you the flexibility. And then ultimately it comes down to living with intention, which is what Ninja's all about.
Well, let's say an on-purpose life versus an on-accident life is built around intention and consciousness, discernment. Yes. When I merged all my companies in Albuquerque to build Coldwell Banker Legacy, we had bought a Prudential and a Better Homes and Gardens, put them all together. We had a cultural mess. It was like, putting all the watercolors together. It was brown. There was no culture. So we took our entire management team to the Stephen Covey Institute in Sundance. And we were there for 5 days with 18 of us. It was a fantastic time. And on the last day Stephen Covey came out, it was like we had another facilitator. And he's talking for about an hour with the group, and it was fantastic. We were very close. He said something that I will never forget. He said, "You can be efficient with process and systems, but you cannot be efficient with people." And I thought, holy moly. I mean, that landed like a huge piece. You can't be efficient with customer service. You have to listen to them. If my Ford conversation went more than 3 minutes, I go, great. If they needed to talk and you let them, that was a perfect Ford conversation. Now, if you have a person that every single time does that, you have to be efficient with containing that so they don't feel dismissed. But the point I think we're trying to get to is you can't be efficient with relationships. When you're trying to time block a loving date night, 45 minutes, it ain't going to play. But if you're going to time block for activities, absolutely it plays. I'm trying to make sure that I practice the piano for a full hour every day. Holy moly. The amount of progress that happens with just an hour of practice a day is stunning.
Go to the Ninja exercise of time blocking. And one of the things I use is a digital calendar and a planner. The purpose of the planner is to build your time blocks. The process of writing down how you're going to spend your days is incredibly powerful. And I was recently having a conversation with somebody about how busy I am right now. There's something that's about a month in front of us that I have a lot to do to get to that point. And it goes back to the basics. You have to block your time. You have to put the big rocks in the jar first. All of the analogies that we all know. And sometimes along the way, when life starts to get a little bit smoother, we stop doing these things. This is all classic Peter Parnegg talk, right? Stop doing the things that were working so great. Think of the summertime and the idea of Maycember, where suddenly the busiest month of the year became May for many of us. We were more intentional about how we spent the holiday season, but the creep happened in May, at least for me this year. I realized I stopped doing what was working because I was busy. Suddenly I found myself so busy that I was feeling a little bit in crisis. And the solution is to go back to the basics that got me the success that got me to where I was. And it's a very vicious flywheel. How do you break that?
First of all, let's talk about, my dislike for cliches. I hear back to the basics all the time. Until you define the basics, it's a cliche. And in old school real estate was you got to go back to prospecting. In Ninja, it's you got to go back to the Ninja 9. Let's just make an agreement that anytime we say the basics in Ninja 9 is time blocking and do the Ninja 9. And then everything takes care of itself. Why do we drift? I'm pretty ADHD. I knew that in college. And I am now really, really cognizant of how distractible I am. So making a bold assumption that, especially in real estate, I think it attracts neurodiverse people because of the nature of the business. I think part of it is some neurodiversity that we're just pinging all the time. It's a big generalization. I'm really trying to pay attention to how many tasks do I do 2/3 of? And I'm going, a lot. And it takes an enormous amount of discipline and consciousness for me to say, just finish this, finish it. I had a tenant once who owned the big sound thing in Albuquerque, and he called it, I have no time for 80-20 guys. He said, if I have a contractor, a plumber, anything, 80-20 guys don't work for me be 100 guy. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am an 80-20 guy. And I'm really trying to pay attention to, is that because I put too many things on my plate? So I'm always like, I got to work on that.
What's worked for you?
Being in the moment.
Yeah.
Because when I am in the middle of a project and all of a sudden I leave the project, I'm out of the moment. This project is on autopilot and I'm already thinking about changing the thing over there when I'm working on this. If we are going to try and recontrol time where you started, I think it is getting better and better at staying 100% present. The entire time we've had this podcast, I have not been distracted once. I've not had a intellectual safari where I was like, where did I just go? I think that's a 21st century, 2026 skill that we have under attended to. What do you think?
I agree completely. I also look at this as a series of small decisions that have compounding effect.
Minute by minute.
It is minute by minute.
It really is.
And so much of what happens inside of the ninja system, I think that there's the ninja philosophy, which is the approach to business, and there's the ninja system, which are the things that you do in alignment with that approach. So much of it comes down to the availability of the resources that we have. And time seems to be the one. It's interesting hearing you say there were 11 things that you think take the resources in your life that give you what assembles into the life you want to live. Is that fair? So there's all 11 of these things, and you have to figure out how to put all of those together because there isn't room in your ideal life for one of them to not exist.
That's perfect double negative, but it's correct.
Yeah. They have to be there for Peter to have the life he wants to live.
Yeah, that is the definition, the structure. Yeah.
Yes. I know back to the basics is cliche, and it's also accurate here. Because the basics for me means getting a pen and paper, putting down what you want to do today, breaking it into hours that break into fractions of an hour, and sure, sleep and eat. Those are all things that you quickly peeled off of the to-do list. But in a way, the sleep, eat, and exercise are the things that give you more time
if you control them.
And they all fit into this thing very nicely. I had to have this podcast potentially to be cathartic for my own situation right now. Then I realized so frequently people were seeing how many things I have going on right now.
Yeah.
It was resonating with them.
Yeah.
And they were talking about the things that they have going on right now. An interesting thing to talk about where I haven't met too many people lately who are bored, sitting around doing nothing.
When we started this conversation a couple of days ago, what I started to think is maybe there are two categories of people. I want to be really thoughtful here. People who have tons of interests or have a very robust job and a family and kids and whatever the distractions are. And then there's a bunch of people who might be at a phase in their life where my real estate career is not terribly robust. It maybe takes 2-3 hours a day. I don't have a bunch of diverse interests. I'm kind of looking for something to do. So that then gets back to what are we interested in? And that search, let's go back to what you're saying. When I moved to LA to try and get famous in the music business, and I realized I had no job, no time. I had enough money to not work for a year. I had saved it up. And my goal was to get famous. And all of a sudden I woke up in the morning and I go, what am I going to do? So I built, like an attorney, a time-blocked schedule. Because the sleep there was I'd go to bed at 1:30 in the morning because musician, then would get up at 9:30, and then I'd eat. And then I built from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. a practice schedule.
Okay.
Half an hour for scales, half an hour for music theory, half an hour for the piano, half an hour for learning new songs, half an hour learning how to sing. If you had seen it, it was compulsive as can be. And this was 1983. So I had the concept of time blocking, and I probably knew I was neurodiverse and ADHD. The real important thing, if we were talking, and I'm sure the person you're talking to says, you got to get clear on the priorities. What is P time and what is E time? And the brilliance of that in the real estate business is, did that take a real estate license? Because that gate, could a non-licensed person do that? That's $20 an hour stuff or $30. You're a $250 an hour person. So the question is, have you taken one day and looked at everything you do and go, why am I doing that? Does that take the Rob Nelson role and the Rob Nelson brain?
Yeah. It's a Larry Kendall exercise to take out a stack of note cards, and every 15 minutes you set a timer. And when it goes off, you have to write down what you're doing. Peter, it's humbling. Shocking, humbling. It's designed to be so, but it's also just a mirror. It's only a mirror as to where you're spending this time that we have. And if there is ever a situation where somebody is feeling incredibly, whether it's just busy or maxed out or burnt out or even inspired, but feeling a little bit stifled around, yes, I love this and I could be doing more and I'm not and I don't know why, time is oftentimes the answer. And it's not that you don't have enough time, it's what you're doing with your time. And that exercise was very powerful. The upshot for me is exactly that $250 an hour work being done by somebody who's earning $250 an hour makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
$10 an hour work by somebody who's earning $250 or has the potential for generating $250 an hour makes no sense.
Well, I'm going to restate it. It's a misuse of a precious resource.
Yes.
When I was running my company, before I had some management insights, I believed that my value was created by saying yes to everything. And then what happened when we went to Stephen Covey is that people said, I can't trust you, Peter. And I was devastated. And it's because I was saying yes to everything and then not doing it because I stacked my to-do list too much. And I remember the feeling of going, that makes me not trustworthy. Oh my gosh. And then finally, when I said, I'm not good at that, go see Jackie, people were so relieved rather than let down. And then when I said, this is where I'm really valuable, I'm not really valuable here. And when I learned to delegate the things I was not great at, it was both reassuring to the people around me. I fulfilled my promise to myself and to them and became a much better leader.
I love it. Peter, the action item for somebody as we are looking at the middle of the year, considering where we are, what we wanted to do, the progress we've made, and the gap between those two things, it starts with evaluating your use of time. We gave one idea of an exercise there. What other things have you found useful?
Brene Brown has a phrase, clarity is kindness. Do an analysis of how much time you're spending with people that you do out of obligation, that you don't really get much from, and stop and say, you don't lose weight 20 pounds at a time. You find 15 minutes here, 15 minutes here. I used to call them transition times. Like when I would drive up, between the time that I drove up at the office and actually started to get to work, sometimes was 30 minutes. And I would go, were those 30 minutes valuable? In other words, was I having a meaningful interaction with somebody who needed to connect with me, or was it just waste?
Yeah.
And I think maybe part of it is, let's think of wasted time as true waste and just do an analysis of that. Did I waste time talking to this person that I really don't enjoy?
Yeah.
And I don't get anything from, and I did it out of obligation. I think there's a spot, and then transition times, even when you get home, if you work from home, from the time you actually get home to start work, is that 45 minutes or is it 10 minutes?
Yeah.
I think there's an hour or two a day that leaks. That's like unconscious. Where did that go? I don't know.
And with all things growth, when you realize that something you were doing may not have been optimized, it wasn't the way that was going to get you the result that you wanted, there's a tendency to be critical on ourselves. Love on yourselves. In this time of being so busy and feeling like time is accelerated, scientifically, I don't think that it has. We just are in a place with a lot going on, and the pace of things in life might have accelerated. Be kind to yourselves, because if you're willing to tackle the things, the priorities, and really the deeper motivations of life and feed those the way that you did, and you developed the 11 things that Peter Parnegg needs to have for the life that he wants, you have to give yourself some grace if they don't fit in every single day. And you have to give yourself some honesty to make sure that you're addressing the things that matter most.
Correct. Don't protect. The sentence before that is the idea that acknowledging that you're going to make a mistake is the planting of a seed. It's the whole idea, and the loving on yourself. I've noticed lately I'll be practicing the piano and all of a sudden I'll have this incredible urge to check my email. I'm going, dude, it's been 13 minutes. You did not get an email in the last 13 minutes that requires, there is nothing burning down in your life. There is nothing in my life that requires a response from 13 minutes. And if there is, it would be my wife calling, I've just had a car wreck. She will not email me. I recognize how addicted I am to distractions. And that has been embarrassing and relieving to just say it on a podcast. And, whether it's YouTube Shorts or Instagram or any of the addictions, how much time do we spend in denial and just going, yeah, you're addicted to blank. Let's do it less today.
Well, Peter, one thing I can promise you is your epitaph will not read, Peter Parnegg responded to emails quickly. It's not what people remember.
That's pretty funny.
Right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So if,
okay, I immediately had this response. You're wrong, Rob. They love the fact that sometimes I'm really fast.
They do.
How goofy is that?
Well, we've all received that immediate response from somebody and been like, they're on top of it. That's really cool. And that's not what they put on your headstone.
Yeah.
When the time is up, the way you spent your time is what goes on that. And so with that said, we're out of time here today. Know how much I appreciate you. I deeply appreciate the fact that you come on here and chat with me about these things and that you can be the person in my life who I call with these wild ideas.
Well, thank you for wild. And I also say to my wife, Rob is one of my favorite people on the entire planet. I appreciate you. I appreciate getting to work for you, with you, in partnership, and being inspired. I'll close with this. One of the ways I rate the quality of my life is what I call goosebump moments, where something happens when I get goosebumps. Yesterday I was doing a leadership mastery call, and there were 2 goosebump moments on the call, and I call them out. I just had one now. When I get goosebumps, I know that I am in the moment experiencing the very best that time can give, and it doesn't get any better than this. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. We'll talk to you soon.
If you enjoyed this episode, visit us at theninjasellingpodcast.com to learn more about ninja selling classes and coaching to get you started or further your journey on the ninja path.
Thank you for joining us. Now go have an incredible day.